Okay, so now let's get into this Hugh Jackman news because now Hugh Jackman is opening about the possibility of, you know, retracting his adamantium clause. So there's been many a times when we've talked about Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, or whenever they ask him about playing Wolverine, he's always like, "This is the last film. I don't know if I'm going to come back." He always seems to like close the door on that chapter, and I guess maybe it's because he wants to be taken seriously as a legitimate actor. But no shade. We're just gonna have to call it for what it is. Yeah, he's had little things here and there that he's been able to do, and because of Wolverine, he's been afforded to be able to do his musical stuff, like go on Broadway, and then most recently have his little residency. I think he's done with that right now at Radio City. But people always equate Hugh Jackman with playing Wolverine, and I can't see like he could play that character for the rest of his life. Although I do feel like at this point it's time to move on to a different Wolverine, but because every time Hugh Jackman's Wolverine pops up, his movies do fairly well. He might be playing this until he's literally Old Man Logan. So Hugh Jackman recently appeared on the Graham Norton show, where he proclaimed that he will never say he is never playing Wolverine again. That's why I always tell people never say never. Jackman announced that he was done playing the iconic X-Men superhero after 2017's Logan, which ended with the character's death. But Jackman wasn't being truthful. He returned as Wolverine 7 years later in the 2024 Marvel blockbuster Deadpool and Wolverine. He said, quote, "Every time you're on a talk show, you got to go, nope, I'm not doing that again. But then you keep making another one and it's a big hit. So are you going to have to do it again?" Jackman, he said, maybe I am never saying never ever again, but I did mean it when I said never the first time until the day when I changed my mind. But I really did for quite a few years. I meant it. Well, I'm sure in that when you're in that space, you're sort of like, yeah, I'm pretty much done playing Wolverine. I want to go off because as an actor, you're like, I don't want to be playing the same part for like 20, 30 years, which literally he has at this point. Because we started playing Wolverine in what, like 2000, 2001 when they came out with X-Men? So yeah, he's been playing the character for so damn long. I totally get it that it's like you're ready to move on. You've been playing the same character for almost 30 years. You're not getting any younger. And plus you have to realize that Wolverine, like Hugh Jackman, the older he gets, the more difficult it is for him to maintain the physicality. Because who has the wherewithal to continue to be in the gym and eating a certain way? You got to eat all that damn chicken breast. I'm like, I'm eating every 3 hours, and then I'm having to lift weights and probably using HGH and steroids. And so when Hugh Jackman is trying to look jacked, man, in playing Wolverine or whatever the case is, that's a lot of work on that body. And he ain't getting any younger. The man is in his 50s. So I totally get it that it becomes hard to maintain. But of course, with Hollywood, there's ways you can get around that. Now, during last year's Deadpool and Wolverine press tour, he admitted that his feelings about staying in retirement for Wolverine were complicated after he saw the first Deadpool movie. He was like, I was like, those two characters together, I knew it. I knew the fans wanted it ever since I put on the claws. People talked about these two, so that had always been there, but I just knew. This is what he told Fandango. He said, I ran Ryan, as in Reynolds, and I just said, let's do it. Like, I hadn't rung my agent, no one. I had to ring my agent and say, but oh, by the way, I have just committed to a movie. But not everyone is initially sold on the idea of Jackman coming back as Wolverine. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige confirmed to Empire that he originally warned Jackman against playing Wolverine again. I said, well, quote, I said, let me give you a piece of advice, Hugh. Don't come back. This is what Feige said. You had the greatest ending in the history with Logan. That's not something we should undo. And I will agree with that. I felt like Logan was a great way to wrap up the whole Wolverine saga. I do feel like based on the way they set things up in Deadpool and Wolverine, they already did that montage where there's so many different versions, so many iterations of Wolverine. Now, do I think that he may appear in Avengers Doomsday? Well, look, if you bring back all the other characters, if you bring back Professor X, if you bringing back Cyclops, if you bringing back all these other X-Men that we've grown up from the franchise that he was a part of into the Avengers Doomsday and possibly Secret Wars, I do think that some of the mutants will get killed. But if you're gonna bring them in Secret Wars, then I'm like, yeah, I would like to see Hugh Jackman one or maybe two more times if he survives that. But I do feel like at the end of the day, if you're trying to do a new X-Men where you're going younger, so that way you can have this next generation of actors pretty much play these characters in the long haul, which is what I'm sure Kevin Feige wants. Um, I would be like, yeah, it's time to move on from that. Yes, we like what we like and we want that nostalgia feel. And Hugh Jackman, yes, is the best Wolverine to ever do it. I mean, that's not saying much because that's the only Wolverine that we know. But it's time to hang up the claws. It's time to let somebody young, fresh, and new come in and play that part, whoever it is. I mean, I don't know. Some people say Daniel Radcliffe. Some people say Taron Egerton. So many people say so many different names. And I'd be all here for whoever they choose because I'm sure that Marvel, one of the things about them, they're really good with the casting. And I like Hugh Jackman. I met him in person. He and I spoke briefly. He's very good looking in person and he's nice. He's a nice guy. So, and I told him we had an elevator situate. I was going to say elevator encounter. That would have sounded way too sexual. But we had an encounter. We talked briefly. He was cool and everything. So, and this is when he was promoting Logan. That's when he and I met. So um I like Hugh Jackman. He is in of course the best Wolverine to ever do it. However, I do feel like if we're trying to tell a whole new story with new X-Men, it is time that we move on from Hugh Jackman, just like we could depart from. And here's the thing that I feel like this is probably the fault of uh oh my god, what's his name? Bryan Singer, the director, or the original one. Hugh Jackman was never like, well, not Hugh Jackman. Wolverine was never a character that was supposed to be like the central part of the X-Men, but he made his character that way. He centered X-Men around Wolverine. And yes, and Hugh Jackman definitely did what he would need to be done in regards of making his character memorable. But at the same time, it's like we're putting, I feel like, way too much on Hugh Jackman. And yes, we can sit up here and talk money and box office, finances, how that's great. But I feel like in my heart of hearts, it's time to revamp, bring in new people, and give other actors a chance to play all these different characters, whether it be Storm, whether it be Jean Grey, whether it be Professor X, Magneto, Mystique, whoever. It is time to bring in fresh meat once they've done whatever it is they plan on doing with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. So I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story? Would you be here to see Hugh Jackman on the big screen yet again playing X-Men? I mean, playing X-Men, playing Wolverine in X-Men. And look, I would never want to turn away seeing Hugh Jackman on our big screens again to playing the character, to playing Wolverine. But like I said, it's time to move on and bring in new people and reboot the franchise of X-Men. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.